Okay, welcome everybody to our. Maybe you guys can turn off your video for now. I'll talk for a little bit, and then I'll be passing the baton over to Christina to follow me, and we'll go after it one after the other. Okay, so why am I here? That is the title of today's webinar, and because we see as astrologers the astrological birth chart, the moment when you draw in that first breath and they cut that umbilical cord, it says that your soul chose the time, the parents, the place, the location, the body, the religion, everything, right? In order for your soul to accomplish a certain intention. And this intention is revealed in your birth chart. So when we draw that birth chart, as above, so below. The constellations, the planets, everything reflects from the farthest out to the deepest within intention of why we came here. And so, this is why we do our astrology, is to give ourselves, first of all, and then other people, a greater, deeper understanding of their unconscious soul intention for incarnating. And this has very many different levels. It's got very different, many ramifications. And the number one thing that I would like to bring up in regards to this unconscious soul is that your astrological chart is a blueprint of your soul. And as a blueprint, just think if you were an architect and you draw up a blueprint, it's like a map of a future construction of something that wants to manifest, of something that in a way wants to be built and created. So this blueprint, is, this piece of paper, and it shows, where everything is, and we get an understanding of our potential, of what we're bringing in from our past lives, of the gifts that we have, the experience that we have, the love that we have, the problems that we have, the issues that we've had with our partnerships and relationships, or with money, or with self-acceptance, or with sex, or with religion, or what to believe. We're a complex blending and mixing of so much past life experience that if we actually were to remember it consciously, it would completely overwhelm us to the point of just wiping us out.
Hey, Kate, we're getting a lot of feedback that people can't hear you. Try holding the mic closer to your mouth, maybe.
Oh, yeah. It is freaking rain. You can see the rain behind you, right? Can you hear me better now? Is that better? I've got 95 in the chat.
Sounds good to me. One person said it was better without the headphones, so give that a shot.
Well, I mean, without the headphones, you're going to get Mother Nature. Can you hear me now? I mean, now I'm going to shout over.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Just be closer to.
Yeah,
like,
I'll just keep this right here. How about that if I just talk into this little silver thing? Okay?
lovely.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to have to start over again. Just kidding. So the main point that I wanted to bring, I was talking about an architect makes a blueprint of a future creation. And your astrological birth chart is a blueprint of your soul's desires to incarnate in order to manifest and in order to evolve a fuller you, a greater potential. So that it's not that the planets are doing anything to us, or this transit is helping us or hurting us or stopping us, or it's, you know, it's not about cause and effect, that the planets are, you know, stopping me or, you know, giving me the green light, or, you know, it is about us looking and understanding this blueprint, understanding our unconscious soul blueprint, and fully embracing and aligning our conscious intention, our willpower, our discipline, our setting of goals, and really going forward and taking this blueprint and actually making our lives, right, a beautiful reflection of our potential, our biggest, fullest potential. So astrology, the way that New Paradigm Astrology uses it, is to empower us even more to become more conscious of our unconscious soul desire to grow, evolve, serve, give, love, and integrate. So this is why we've done this whole year's course. It's called Astrology for the Soul, the complete course for chart interpretation. Some of you might even, you know, be in it already. We've got, you know, 80 people, I think, that signed up for the full course. It started last October, and it went into the, you know, the 4 elements and the 3 modalities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable, fire, earth, air, and water. And with these 4 elements and 3 modes, we, you know, explained and, you know, really illuminated the 12 signs of the zodiac. And then in February, we did module 2. And in module 2, we went through each and every planet so that we have all the archetypes, we have all the players, and we went through the houses of the chart. And then in June, we came with module 3, and we looked at planetary patterns. We began to look at the whole chart, and we looked at all the aspects, the squares and the trines and sesquiquadrats and quincunxes and the phases, okay, of the cycles by which we evolve. And so this module coming up, module 4, is the crowning glory. It's where we take all those parts, the signs, the planets, the houses, the aspects, and we bring them all together. We got the ingredients for the ultimate cake. Chart interpretation is the cake. And we're going to put it in the oven. September 7th is when this begins. So today what we're really doing is I'm just kind of, you know, bringing everyone together. The dream team, each one of us is going to do a week-long lesson on a different aspect of chart interpretation. So each one of the astrologers here today is going to give you a little bit about what they're going to share and how that relates to why I am here, what's going on now, maybe the current transits, or what you might be feeling right now, so that you can walk away from this webinar with a greater understanding of what's going on now, a greater understanding of yourself, and a greater understanding of astrology. So with that, what I want to do is pass the baton over to Christina. Christina is going to be doing lesson 2 in the module, and here she is.
Great. Thank you, Kaypacha. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, and actually for bringing us all together for this course. We have been together, like Kaypacha said, this is module 4. So it's the grand finale of our program, Astrology for the Soul. And what better way to tie it all together with the essential question that I think we all want to know is, why am I here? And I'll tell you, I think that's what makes evolutionary astrology so specific and beautiful, is because so much of astrology is focused on what's going to happen, what's going to happen to me, divining the future. But life is more than just a series of events happening to us, right? I mean, if we don't know truly who we are and how we can change and what we need to do to live a life that's more satisfying to the soul, then, we're just constantly back on our heels, chasing after the next thing, or trying to not be thwarted by, the next disaster. And living your life as if there's another disaster around the corner, that's really not the most empowered and really peaceful way to live and to enjoy life. Knowing why you might be here, what your soul is calling for you to live into and to step up to. That is what evolutionary astrology can really help you to see. And it's a tool, right? It's a tool that takes your participation. And so we all actually have a responsibility to know ourselves deeper and to work in tandem with the universe to figure out what we're doing here and how we can contribute in the best way, in the way that is in alignment with our soul. Right? And there's a difference between, just living a life where you're happy all the time. I mean, that's really not that possible. We're not meant to be happy all the time, but we certainly can live lives that are deeply meaningful. And I know with my personal journey with astrology, I spent many years as a client of an astrologer who, would help me to see when's the next big disaster coming. And to be honest, I was living a lot in fear. And it wasn't until I really realized how much power I have around creating and co-creating my own destiny. And with evolutionary astrology, the essentials, if we were to just break it down into some of the essential focus of the chart, we look at Pluto and the nodes. And for this course, we're really going to be focusing on that power sort of alignment with the chart. Is what does Pluto and the nodes have to say to me about my soul's intention and the potential path to get there, to grow, to evolve into that intention. And Kaypacha is going to be starting off with going deeply into the nodes themselves. Like, what are the lunar nodes, right? They are the nodes of the moon. So they speak to the moon, the nature of the moon, our self-identity, our self-actualization, and our emotional needs and satisfaction, right? And so when we look at, going from the south node to the north node, and, depending on how our chart is laid out, sometimes we need to keep going back and forth. And we often do feel like, we've reached for the north node, and then there's other times where the south node has gifts that we need to express in this life, and then move to the north node and find our area of soul growth. So we'll be talking a lot about how the nodes really help us to find and define a path for our soul. And they say that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. And this is when we take the option. We say yes to growth, because growth can be pretty uncomfortable for most of us, and that's kind of the nature of it. But we often see that, we've come into this life likely with imprints from past lives or the early lifetime that served a great purpose. But then we come to a point where we're no longer satisfied with just our innate gifts. Maybe we have more gifts to open up to, and we have more to experience, and that takes some trust, and that takes exploring your natal chart to see, what are sort of the signifiers of where my soul wants me to blossom into. And so Kaypacha is going to be taking the first half of the zodiac, and I'm going to be taking the back half when we look at the nodes. For instance, Cancer, Capricorn. I'm going to be talking about the Cancer Capricorn axis, which is also archetypally the 4th and 10th house axis. So we're going to be looking at, what does it mean? What could it potentially mean when your nodes are in these signs and houses? And then I'll be doing Leo Aquarius, 5th and 11th houses, and Virgo Pisces, which is the 6th and 12th houses. And really, again, if we look at the entire life, the entire potential of a person's life, and it's contained within this, pie that's got 12 slices, then that's actually a lot to contain in one chart, and with, these, 10 to 12 signatures. So each little symbol, even though we like to distill them into just a few key words, we know that life, a person's entire life, a soul, can't be contained in a few key words. So that's why in this course, we're really going to challenge you to look at the symbols and look at your life experience and come up with yourself, with how much, you know of yourself and how much you can create your own message through your astrological symbols. What is your destiny saying to you? What have you lived so far? Like a lot of times I'll get a question from someone that'll say, what does it mean that, there was a full moon on my Venus like 2 weeks ago? And I'll say, well, what happened 2 weeks ago around, the Venus in your life, your relationships, your pleasure, things like that. And it really takes observing, because again, astrology isn't just here to prescribe a life. It's to help you to use it as a tool to live life and to, as Kaypacha said, to know yourself better, to know your desires, to know what it is that sometimes takes you, by the back of the head and makes you do things that just possess you or inspire you. And it's those moments that really help us to see that the soul is alive in the world, when it feels like something bigger than us is coming through us, when we're part of something bigger than us. And actually, that's what astrology does, is it connects us individually to the cosmos, to the all, right? So that we know that no matter how small and insignificant we feel, we are part of this amazing grand design. I mean, just if you've ever even thought of what kind of universe is it that my destiny and my personality and my potential is all encoded in these little symbols, and if you've ever had those moments, if you're here, you've probably had one or two of those moments where, and like Helen says, it's fascinating when you can just, it takes your breath away, that there is some kind of plan for you. So don't you want to know a little bit more about how you can access that plan? And that's what we're all here to do. And I mean, like you'll hear from Kaypacha and Maurice and Ari Moshe, a lot of these astrologers have been looking at their own charts for 20 years, 20, 30 years. So there's always something to uncover. So you don't have to feel pressure that you need to get your chart, in a 7-week course. This is actually something that's going to help you to actually be able to have the skills to know where the juice is in your chart, to know what to hone about your chart and about your soul, right? It helps to give you that level of clarity. So if you've been with us through this course, you know that this is, again, the last course. Oh my God. We've been like such a wonderful group together in each course. We've had a lot of people coming back course after course. And now with this final one, we're going to be doing a synthesis. So taking all that we have learned and playing with it now. It's like playing the instrument. And we're all part of this symphony orchestra, and it's our chance to shine. And for this course, we're going to ask for volunteers because each of the teachers is going to be doing a full in-depth chart interpretation with volunteers from the course. So I think there'll only be about 7 students selected for it. But we will, you know, if we find enough volunteers, we'll be definitely going deep into our own style of evolutionary astrology, because even though we're all evolutionary astrologers, of course, we're individuals, and we come to a chart very differently, right? We have our own way of viewing it, even though the essential is we are looking at what does this soul need and desire and want to express. You know, where is this soul stuck? Maybe where does this soul want to grow? And the other thing is, anytime you look at a chart, you'll want to know, what does this person want to know, right? Rather than just looking at a chart and saying, okay, this is you, you know. I mean, if a person knows themselves at all, they'll know who they are. But in order to help someone, you want to know, what is it that they are seeking, right? And so just the dynamic of being in a astrological consultation is something that we'll also be showing how that works from our point of view. All right, so I'm about to wrap up. Let me see if there's anything else. I forgot Pluto, but I know that throughout this course, Ari Moshe Wolf has been our Pluto guy. So in this course, we're all going to be accessing Pluto because, again, Pluto and the nodes are have a very special relationship. With Pluto, that really helps us to look at our unconscious. The soul, sorry, my alarm is going off here because I tried to do it for just 10 minutes. The unconscious part of the soul is what we may think of as our shadow, right? It's shadow material. It's material that isn't usually ripe enough for our conscious mind. And it takes our consciousness to, with patience, with ease, and, you know, with some respect, to be looking at these deep parts of ourselves that we normally may, you know, not feel like we have the courage to. But when we can access our shadow and bring consciousness, the light of consciousness, to, you know, the darkness of shadow, we can really be more honest with ourselves of what kind of a person we are and who we truly want to be. So hopefully that gave you a little taste of part of the course. So I wanted to, if I can, I hope it's okay if I can go ahead and share Sul's video, since I'm right here. So Kaypacha, if that's not cool, then let me know, but I'll just go ahead and do that right now. Let me see if that works. Okay, so I'll just share my screen. And Sul could not be with us today, so she has sent us a little video to tell us what she is going to be presenting in the course. Let me see. I think this is it. Where did it go? Sorry. All right, here we go.
Hello, everybody. I am so sorry I couldn't make it to the live webinar because I would really love to be there, and especially because I think this module that is coming up is so interesting. That was the reason I got into evolutionary astrology in the first place, was exactly the nodal axis. I had a hunch, and I'm born with a nodal axis conjunct the ascendant-descendant angle. And it turns out a lot of people who are actually into astrology and into, you know, looking into their past and trying to figure out what's blocking their future and so, and really trying to get to know themselves, who they are, have a very pronounced nodal axis dynamic going on. For instance, as in my case, conjunct the angles, or heavily loaded with planets conjunct the nodal axis. And that's my particular thing for this upcoming class, is that I'm doing the planets on the nodal axis segment. And right now we have planetary action around the nodal axis, and we all notice how intense this nodal axis is at the times of long-lasting transits to the nodal axis, or in particular like eclipses as well, which is the sun and the moon making a connection to the nodal axis, which we had this summer. But the zeitgeist of this particular period we call the summer of 2019 is Saturn on the nodal axis. And this is not well, that's not something to take lightly. I mean, Saturn is, after all, the planet of correction. Sometimes we call that karma, right? But it's more like a correction. It's a corrective energy. It says, oh, sweet Lord, you're out of alignment, it says. You know, look at that. Oh, you're doing a little bit too much of that and too little of that. I think you need to balance that thing out. That's Saturn teaching us how to organize our lives better, how to become more functional, how to become more efficient, how to prioritize better, and how to not squander energy, squander this beautiful life energy that we were given and that we should not take for granted. So Saturn on the south node that we have one hit of still going on at the end of September is turning on this process, and it's been happening, you know, on and on and on all this summer. So I'm sure it hasn't been a summer that's, you know, been bereft of growth. It's probably been a very strong summer for you in one way or another. Saturn is that capacity inside of us where we really mature and we wake up and we grow up and we say, yeah, I'm in this thing. I created it. I see that now. It's fine. I'm fine with it. And with that acceptance comes immense liberation. With that acceptance comes a certain kind of dignity. It's like, yeah, sure, I made a mistake. I'm cleaning it up. Of course, that happens. We are humans, aren't we? We make mistakes, and that's how we learn. And sometimes we need to do them like 300 billion times. I don't know. But Saturn retrograde this summer meant also we were going back to check, you know, okay, so I came that way. I'm going to check to see what really happened. Further down the road, I seem to have been unconscious at that particular moment. And I made some mistakes because I was unconscious. And why was I unconscious? Because I was either too afraid, I was too in my programming. Saturn has to do with conditioning. Conditioning is, you can equate it to programming, the software, you know. The software is, it just moves. It's karma is habit. It's just repeating the old habits over and over again. And, you know, since Saturn has been going and crossing that, you know, from late Capricorn back until, you know, 12 degrees Capricorn, 13 degrees Capricorn is where it's going to go direct again. It's been covering the latter part of Capricorn for quite a while now. So if you have planets on the cardinal points, anything Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn, you're in that zone where you might have had to relive certain experiences again so that you can become conscious of them. Because we can only stop doing things once we wake up from something. And Saturn is associated to initiation. Initiation is nothing other than awakening. When we are unconscious in something and we create from such an unconscious place, like we create worries or we create hopes and dreams and expectations that later might lead to disappointments, etc., we are completely unconscious of that process. We don't dream consciously. Few of us are lucid dreamers, you know. But that's what Saturn does. It's the planet of initiation. It says, wake up, smell the coffee. If you don't want to smell the coffee, I'm going to pour it in your lap, and then you'll feel it, right? So these Saturn times are incredible, fruitful in many ways if we can accept that fact that, okay, I'm in the shit, I created it, and I'm going to go back and relive it a little bit, not entirely, of course, but I'm going to see again what happened there because I wasn't completely aware. And then I'm going to wake up and not do it again. Why? I don't need that. Or it's just taking my time. Or it's just not how I should prioritize my resources. Or I see that that's just part of some immature habit that I had. And I feel less dignified by holding on to that pattern. It's time to let go now. So this summer and this last little round of it now coming up in September is definitely a place where you can really, you know, get to the next level and really find that, whew, it's nice to grow up, right? It is nice. It gives you a lot of freedom. And you know that whatever you came into, whatever you are experiencing right now, there's one little part of you that created it. And let me just nuance that a little bit. I'm not talking about if you're, you know, your husband is dying of cancer in a hospital somewhere or something cruel like that, you know, something that is more on the things that just happens and, you know, more fatal side of life. No, I'm thinking of your actions, what you create in your everyday thinking and your habits and the organization of your life in general. Now, you gotta have a lot of good excuses, you know, and there's a reason they are called excuses. Maybe you have to go through them and see, maybe I'm just holding myself back with that one. Toss it out. Maybe I don't need that. No, that's just an excuse. Well, what have I been doing? Geez, I have all these excuses. There's always an excuse. That's the easiest thing to find on earth. But once you go past them and you find that, okay, bring it on. I'm ready. I'll take this one. You will feel a new surge of energy and power through you. You will see that at least I said yes. You know, Saturn is about taking one step towards the gods, and the gods will take 10 steps towards you. That's just the way it works. Saturn in the spiritual space is grace. So if you're in a really difficult situation right now, just open up and ask for grace. So I hope to see you all on Module 4. We've been putting in a lot of work as usual, and it's so much fun. It's just so, I've learned so much. It's like, wow, these people I work with, they're so good. And we share so much, and it's such a gift, really. It's really like from the bottom of my heart. I would never say this if I didn't mean it. It's really a beautiful experience. It's been amazing. And it's been transformative for all of us, of course, and for our students as well. You know, it's not an easy material to go through because it's thick and rich and it's astrology. It's a lot to remember. But people are getting there. And I see that, you know, as we master these little sub-levels of our challenges, we grow and we feel better and better about ourselves. And that's a good feeling to master something. So we're here to hopefully encourage you to keep on moving. We know exactly how difficult it is because everybody studied astrology, and studying anything, you know, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. So, yeah, but we would love to see you all. And if not, enjoy that Saturn thing anyway, won't you? Okay, ciao.
All right. Oh, that was so beautiful. I love her. I mean, I think you all should just join just to get some soul in your life. I know I want to. Okay, so who is up next? Who we got? Ari Moshe. I think I see you up there. All right. I hand it over to you.
All right, let's try it without the headphones. Can we hear me good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Good to be with you all. So I'm going to speak about Pluto and the nodes. You know, we can look at astrology charts and go as deeply as we are willing to reflect on who are we? Like, what's this life all about? What's really going on here? We can always stop at a more superficial level. But what happens with evolutionary astrology, and what I'll be teaching about right now, is there's an invitation, there's an opening through the natal chart to directly in a very tangible way understand what is the evolutionary reason, purpose, imperative behind my life. And looking at life, looking at existence here on Earth from an evolutionary perspective means we're not taking things for granted. It means this isn't just a bunch of random experiences, and that we're not just a bunch of personality traits fumbling and trying to figure one another out. There's an inherent program, there's a DNA intelligence underneath this whole experience. And one analogy I really like to use to describe the phenomena of evolution and how this relates to the natal chart is to speak about the caterpillar. So from the point of view of the force of evolution, and I want to qualify the force of evolution as totally impersonal. It doesn't care about your preferences. It doesn't really have much concern with the ideas of life and death. Like the impulse, the will of evolution is itself. It's a principle of creation of life. It's what's happening. So from the point of view of evolution, of the evolutionary force, caterpillar is an experience. It's a moment within the schematic of eternity awakening to itself. But from the point of view of the individuated aspect of consciousness experiencing itself as caterpillar, by necessity, there's the need for consciousness to know itself as a caterpillar. It's an obvious statement, right? When caterpillar is in caterpillar phase in its evolutionary journey, it needs a correlate and appropriate self-image. It needs to know itself as caterpillar, do caterpillar things, want caterpillar things, eat caterpillar ways. And in evolutionary timing, there comes a point where caterpillar ego structure, the identity, the form, the vehicle, the way of knowing oneself as caterpillar has to fall away. It has to. All forms have to go at a certain point. What that means is self-identity, self-concept has to shift. And there's this involutionary period during all evolutionary phases where consciousness is no longer what it knew itself as being, but it's not yet the new thing. It's not yet a butterfly. And so this is, something that we all experience in our own life journey. Whatever we're working through, whatever we're here to unravel and discover, we're going to fixate. When I say we, I'm speaking to ourselves as soul, as consciousness. Consciousness will fixate itself towards an identity structure, a self-image, which is a way of internalizing and integrating our experiences so we have a way of functioning in this world. So we're going to say, okay, I'm going to show up as a teacher. These are the things that I'm doing. These are the ways of being in the world that I'm concerned with. These are my relationships. If I have a desire to experience more intimacy, more stability in my life, then I might create an ego structure that's going to become very focused on finding life partnership, right? Finding the one. And maybe I'll find someone and that will serve my evolutionary needs. I'll grow. I'll learn more about myself from that experience. But that's just an experience. It's just a phase. Will continue to unfold, and what's required is some level of spaciousness within our ego structure, within our self-concept, to think of our lives differently, to form a different relationship to who we are, what we're doing, what this is all about. Otherwise, we just hold on. It's like, well, I need you to be this for me, meaning I need life to be this for me. I need everything to be the way I need it to be so that I feel secure. That works for a time, but we have to be able to move on. Another analogy to this, to give like a microcosmic expression, is simply the phenomena of children growing up. Ego development happens, and a child will develop a certain security, home, family, what's safe, what's known, but it also has to mature in its own timing, hopefully in a healthy way. It needs to move beyond what it knows and be able to expand into more of the unknown, encompass its sense of self in a larger way. So this is what's happening with evolution. And this is the way that I describe the relationship between the soul and the ego. And this is Pluto and the nodes, right? Ego is to the soul like the moon is to the earth. It's a satellite. Our ego structure, our personality, our sense of self, it doesn't exist in its own vacuum. It's not just a thing. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why each one of us has the particular story, triggers, interest, needs, and reality that we all have uniquely for our own self. We're all finding intimacy with life in our own unique way. This way of knowing ourselves reflects how we are in relationship to our evolutionary needs at the time. It's the way that we're engaging with evolutionary journey. And if we can keep our self-image open and fluid, we can make changes, let go, move on, make shifts, sometimes big ones, as needed. And when evolutionary timing comes knocking on our door, it's irritating to anyone. It's inherent. Well, sometimes there are evolutionary experiences that are about the ego structure realizing more power. Like, I can do this. That's opening up to more empowerment. But sometimes evolutionary timing is asking us to let go. It's asking us to let go of what we've been holding on to. And very, very often, that's incredibly irritating to any ego structure. It's asking us essentially to face our own death. And from the point of view of evolution, death and birth, really the only thing that's really happening is the form of things changes. Forms end. Metamorphosis from one form to the next. And we make a big deal out of like death, but really from the soul perspective, there's just the journey. So to offer a little teaching on how do we apply this in the chart, in general, and you really can't make this a total rule, because when you look at a chart, you find a lot more complexity. But as a general principle, the south node of the moon speaks to the ego structure that we are familiar with. It's how we've moved through life, right? So it's how we've learned, it's how we've grown, it's how we've engaged with this spiritual journey. And Pluto is the evolutionary intention. It's what's evolving. It's the way in which we are awakening to more of our eternal soul power inside. And so the north node of the moon, it's always opposite the south node. So the north node is opposite the south node. And the general correlation with the north node speaks to the evolving ego structure. It's a way of knowing myself that very often is contrary to what is safe, known, and familiar. And by embracing the north node, and ultimately by integrating the axis, not being bound by the dualities of south node, north node, we're able to meet more of our life experiences and see ourselves in a new way and evolve. And this is where the Pluto polarity point comes in. I won't get too heady with it all, but during our course, we'll really get to learn about north node, south node, Pluto polarity point, how to apply it in our own charts, how to understand it. But look to where your Pluto is. And the point opposite your Pluto is what Jeff Green taught as the evolutionary purpose of this current life. Because Pluto's evolution, it's also where we tend to hold on. It's where we can resist. It's where we can resist change. And so the polarity point speaks a lot to where we are essentially embracing the necessity of change and growth and evolution in our own lives. But to keep it simple, the relationship between Pluto and the nodes is the relationship between ego and soul. We have to evolve, as this whole life is about evolution. And I'll share one more thing. When we speak about evolution in this course, and we look at our chart and we look at Pluto, we look at the nodes, and we understand, okay, what's the evolutionary intention? What's the goal? Like, where are we going, right? Like, what's evolution all about? And I always like to say two things. One, it's about this present moment. It's the process. Like, we're not trying to get anywhere. Caterpillar has to play itself out. We have to play out the phases in our life. And very often we have to live out one of the nodes for a while. Maybe it's the south node. We have to live out the south node for a while. We can't just go to the north node. Sometimes In some cases, there's an issue with the North Node we have to focus on before we can really fully understand and reintegrate the South. We have to be where we are. And then another way of thinking of evolution, and this is how Jeff Green beautifully describes it, it's the gradual elimination of all desires until the only desire remaining is the desire to return to self, the desire to return to source. And to me, what that reflects is in this life journey, we can focus our attention towards all kinds of things. I want this, I want that, I want to try this and that. But ultimately, gradually, as life progresses, we realize deeper and deeper and deeper that everything that we're seeking is inside. We can't jump to that. But as we evolve and as we grow, we can become more self-responsible and take responsibility for where we're hurt, where we're triggered, where we feel victimized. Ultimately accepting that everything is pointing ourselves back to our own soul and where we are learning to find our power within. This shouldn't be used as a way to sidestep the pain and the journey of life. But that self-empowerment is really the essence of Pluto. That's the essence of it, ultimately taking full responsibility for our own evolutionary growth. So we're going to go very deeply into that. Lots of chart studies, cases, and stories, and just deeper into the teaching. So I hope you will join us for that. And I am passing the baton on to someone. I'll let you unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Maurice calling. I hope you're enjoying the last hours of your weekend. And we are excited, as everyone said, about this module. We're getting to the deeper layers of chart analysis. I'm going to focus in this module on the planets that are ruling the node. So Juan Sul and Ari and Christina have covered what they are about. We're going to start really tapping into these deeper layers of the analysis, because think about the fact that the nodes are in a sign for about 18 months. So let's say the nodes now are in Cancer Capricorn for 18 months. We're going to look at the rulers, which are going to be Saturn for the South Node in Capricorn and the Moon for the North Node in Cancer. So Saturn is conjunct its own node. I'm going to share my screen to show you some chart to make it a little more easily. Just a moment here. So you can see this is the transit for today, and you see the South Node is in Capricorn, conjunct its own ruler. So this amplifies the Capricornian theme so much so that we see what's happening today. We see the, you know, the big shift and the transformation that is called upon all our structures, particularly political structure. You know, there's no trust in our leaders anymore. You see the Hong Kong protests. Just today I read this report about Hong Kong protesters dismantling street cameras that are meant to track people on face recognition. So all over China, they have these cameras to basically track every move you make. And we see this Capricornian theme, which is trying to control the masses, and Pluto being there, redefining what authority means, redefining what the system should be. And we see basically the loss of trust and the deconstruction of our structures. And what's the North Node? It's in Cancer, and it speaks about harmonizing, slowing down, about taking care of the individual, about the nurturing aspect of our lives, and the fact that, you know, we've spent too much time in the go, 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 accomplish, and the Cancer North Node speaks about replenishing, really. And now it's not enough. you need to look at the ruler of the North Node, which in this case is going to be the moon. And the moon is at the very end of Gemini, but look at this. I'm going to fast forward this one day, and tomorrow the moon is going to be on its own North Node. So the ruler of the South Node is going to be on the South Node, and the ruler of the North Node is going to be on the North Node. And that happens now, particularly that Saturn stays on the South Node. Once a month, the moon's going to be on the North Node, and that's a moment of huge initiation. It's a portal of sorts where we can definitely use this time to resolve some of these emotional conflict, maybe family conflicts, some old karma that needs to be resolved. And how do I know this? I look at the rulers. So looking just at the nodes, they're going to be Cancer, Capricorn the whole 18 months. But now I understand that tomorrow is going to be very unique because I understand that the rulers are in aspect to each other, number one, and they're in aspect to each other on their respective nodes. Huge. So tomorrow you may feel deeply emotional because it's a time where you're going to tap into ancestral karma. You're going to go back to your family line and try to see what daddy did and what mommy did, or you're going to tap into old insecurities. Or maybe you're going to feel drained and you're going to need that moon North Node reconnection to the simplicity, you know, to slowing down, to taking a deep breath into a bathtub and relaxing a little bit. So whatever, you know, that activates in your life, in your chart, see by house and sign. I'd like to look at other interesting examples. Sue mentioned the importance of planets in aspect to the nodes, and interestingly, you know, I looked at different charts of public figures with Uranus on the North Node, and here we have Gorbachev with Uranus on the North Node, and you see how he changed the Soviet Union, liberated the Soviet Union, and, you know, dissolved the whole communist nonsense to bring Uranus progress, advancement, liberation, and move forward in life. Now, interestingly, you look at his nodes, they are in Aries, Libra. So what are the rulers? Ruler of South Node is going to be Venus, and Venus is in Capricorn, and ruler of North Node is going to be Mars, and Mars is in Cancer, retrograde. And the rulers are opposite each other, and they're square those nodes. So when you have the rulers of the nodes in aspect to each other, you understand that there's a huge, this life is going to be a huge catalyst to resolve many of those past lives, unresolved issues. So it's a time where there's so much more activation, and you got to do the job, you know, you can't postpone it. It's now is the time for you. So what's going on here? Okay. So when you see that Gorbachev had that Mars-Venus opposition, you realize that he came from the South Node in Libra, and he came from that union of all the nations. And he progressed into the North Node in Aries, and he had to take charge. He had to take a bold move and stop being the pleaser. Because the South Node in Libra can try to, you know, find the perfect balance, make everyone happy, try to avoid conflict. And the North Node in Aries says, you got to do what you got to do. You got to break some egg for that omelet. And so he had to take the leadership. He had to do something that's going to cause a commotion and stir the pot and light the fire and Uranus was there to trigger it. But you realize that Mars was in Cancer, the ruler was in Cancer retrograde, and you realize that that led to a backlash. And even though he was a hero, the Cancer Mars creates a lot of insecurity. So on the one hand, you move forward and you make your change and you open a new door, you're pioneering, you know, a new way. But the Mars in Cancer says, but wait, I'm scared, I'm hesitating. And you had many people on that fence criticizing him. That, you know, in this case was also involved with the Mars opposing Saturn and Venus. So what we're seeing is that the rulers are going to give us more to the story. When we look at another interesting fellow born in the same generation, Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, with the same North Node in Aries conjunct Uranus. So once again, you see this pioneer North Node in Aries, the first one to set foot on the moon, and where Uranus in space. So you see that planets on the North Node, on either node, are going to be amplified. They're going to dominate the consciousness, the destiny of this person. And you look at the rulers here, ruler of the North Node is Mars, this time in Gemini. And Mars in Gemini is going to tell you, I'm going for a walk, honey. I may not be back right away. So he's going on a very long journey. And Mars in Gemini, you know, is about ushering a new message. It's about exploring our environment. And it's not just your neighborhood, it's the Earth neighborhood. It's our neighbor, the moon. So he went and said hi to the neighbor. So this again gives us an interesting angle to understand that he needed, you know, he was a revolutionary in his own way, a pioneer, and he did so through this journey, through his intellect, Mars in Gemini. And there was some controversy also with the whole journey to the moon, but for another time. And another interesting example of another fellow with Uranus on the North Node in Aries is Jim Jones, the cult leader who led, I don't know how many people, many, into a collective suicide because whatever claim that the world's going to end, basically the authorities were closing on him, and he saved himself by killing everybody and himself. But you see the Uranus on the North Node conjunct the moon. You see the shadow side of that was the cult leader. Uranus also has to do with the crazies, you know, those who come with quote unquote progressive ideas, create a new community. You know, he came with all these enlightened ideas, but guess what? Pluto was squaring those nodes, and there was a lot of emotional manipulation, unresolved trauma that came from that Pluto that led to a disaster. But if you look again at the rulers of the nodes, interestingly here, you see that the South Node was in Libra, and the ruler Venus is on the North Node. So you see that he reached that North Node faster because the ruler was placed on the North Node. So it's almost like in this life, I'm already familiar with that North Node, and that's what I want to do. And very quickly, he paved his way, you know, into that individual trailblazing approach. And unfortunately, he misused that power and led many people astray. But you can see that he was really accessing that north node much faster than normal, than a regular chart. And you see the ruler of the north of all that Aries stellium is Mars in Leo. And you see how, you know, he became intoxicated with himself. And it was all about his creativity and his progeny, and he became this self-absorbed Mars in Leo. So this is all, you know, giving you a glimpse of how to look at charts. And of course, we're going to go through the different axes, the different rulers, the different rules. What if the ruler of the north node is on the south node, and vice versa? What if they are in aspect to each other? And what if they're not? And then how to analyze this, because you kind of have to elaborate on your analysis now and include more factors. You have to include the houses of the nodes, the signs of the nodes. So in this case, South Node in Libra, what does that mean? It's in the 9th house. What does that mean? So the ruler is Venus, and Venus is now in the 3rd house in Aries. How does that add to the story? So it's also an exercise in synthesis. And the purpose of all this is to really try to get more and more in the depth of what we are about and what the deeper soul intentions are about. Think about the nodes as your emotional story. The memories you bring from past life, because memories are emotional. You know, you only remember things that you were emotionally evolved with. You don't remember things that you were neutral about. And that's what sets the tone. That's what marks us. Anything that has touched our emotional body is something that we carry with us, whether it's a gift or whether it's grief. And the nodes are giving us clues about how to navigate that, how to work through that, and resolve that. So it's an exciting study. If you're ready to go deep, join us. And thank you, everyone. I'm going to now speak with Tim.
All right. Thank you, Maurice. I don't know if there's a way to exit out of your screen share. Although Jim Jones is a lovely chart, I'll have to be careful. He's got his Jupiter and Saturn the same degrees as mine, so we'll be a little careful. So thank you all for joining us. This is an amazing, amazing course. And even what we're discussing, I don't know if you all are picking up on this, what we're discussing today, I mean, this is some of the realest, most meaningful, some of the most powerful ways of doing birth chart interpretation. And we're talking a lot about the moon's nodes. And so something that we're really going to be delivering, and something that you can be getting. Am I frozen?
No, you're fine. I had just said that because you said that your Saturn Jupiter is the same degree as Jim Jones. So sorry.
Everybody stopped and just like, oh crap, I'm frozen. Okay, so there is a structure to the birth chart. You may have noticed while you're learning astrology that not every single piece and detail in the birth chart weighs the same. And so we're really going to be exploring what is the structure of the birth chart, how can we confront and acknowledge some of the deepest themes of our life. And so this is powerful astrology. You know, I have found, and I'm certain that the other astrologers have found, that many of the questions, the struggles, the complexes with the clients that we've worked with and that people tend to bring into astrology readings, they tend to go straight into the dynamics that we will be teaching and explaining in this module. Now, I wanted to mention what I'm going to be talking about is planets aspecting the moon's nodes. So we talked about the moon's nodes are going to be in particular signs, are going to be in particular houses. There may be planets conjoining those moon's nodes. And in fact, planets can form any number of aspects to the moon's nodes, squares, trines, sextiles. And we'll talk about what these various aspects between planets and the moon's nodes means, as again, these are going to be some important signatures in any person's birth chart. One of the aspects that a planet can form to the moon's nodes, which I will explain a little bit right now to you all, is when a planet squares the moon's nodes. This is a very important dynamic. And I'm going to quickly explain the astronomy of this, because this is something that y'all can be looking at right now, and we're going to get into much greater detail throughout this course. So the moon's nodes, if you can see on this little drawing, are simply the points where the moon passes the magical plane of the ecliptic. Okay, so here's our Earth, here's the apparent motion of the sun on the ecliptic. When the moon rises above the ecliptic, that point where it conjoins the ecliptic is the moon's north node. And when that moon descends beneath the ecliptic, that point where the moon makes contact with the ecliptic is known as the moon's south node. Now, when a planet is square to the moon's nodes, this is therefore going to be the point where these planets are most distant from that magical plane of the ecliptic. And that's going to give us a little bit of a hint of what this dynamic means. Whenever a planet is square to the moon's nodes, it really indicates a number of specific dynamics as potentials. But generally, there's always going to be some theme of integrating those planets into the evolutionary journey that we see reflected in the moon's nodes. Whenever there is a planet squaring the moon's nodes, this puts an evolutionary tension. And there tends to be a reverberation between the moon's nodes. And what we'll discuss in this course is very specifically how to integrate a planet squaring the moon's nodes into the rest of the chart. Now, universally, whenever a planet squares the moon's nodes, there's going to be something important in that dynamic. There may be an evolutionary stress or developmental stress indicated by that development. That planet square to the moon's nodes may be an important part of who we are, our own makeup or our own nature. And yet that part of ourself may have been distorted or set to the side due to any number of particular dynamics, whether it be a past trauma or past oppression, or whether we were simply brought up in such a way that caused this developmental tension. Or a planet square the moon's nodes can simply be majorly important gifts that we are illuminating and bringing into throughout our life. And so all of these planets squaring the moon's nodes are really important to look at. And something I'll leave us off on just for today is the fact that right now we have the transiting moon's north node at 16 degrees Cancer in a disseminating trine to Neptune at 17 degrees of the sign of Pisces. Generally, right now, this transit can be inviting us all to get into that moon's north node in Cancer, this evolutionary intention of really coming into, tuning in, and discovering our own emotional needs. We can really be uncovering more of the depth of who we are while Neptune is trying the moon's north node. At this time, it's as if we can very much be tuning into our own unfolding story. And I love how Maurice phrased the moon's nodes as being this evolutionary story of who we are, because indeed this story is relevant. It's not a story that we're trying to transcend. It's not an ego we're trying to leave behind. Rather, we are embracing this story. And at this time, we can be really getting into the greater depth of who we are, how this personal story is unfolding into our life's meaning. And by honoring that north node in Cancer, honoring our emotions, honoring this deeper story told from the inside via our own feelings, we can return to our soul's essence of innocence by understanding the whole story. What went before what we can remember, that innocence, that deeper essence of who we are, and being connected to and sharing with the world this greater depth that's being unlocked at this time. There is an opportunity for embodiment in this depth, to show up in this depth, to be connecting with those who can meet us on the same level as this depth, to form a connection of emotional support. And at this time, there can be emotional processing, grieving, releasing emotions, indicated by a necessary phase in our overall journey of healing and integration. So that's just one quick reflection of the current astrology, but we're also going to take these dynamics into the natal chart. And again, this course is going to really cover what is that structure of the soul? What is that evolutionary journey? What are the heavy weights? And this is really going to create a very accurate, a very concise, and rather effortless way of doing extremely accurate astrological chart interpretation. So it's a real gift to be a part of this course. I look forward to continue sharing with all of you. And I'm now going to pass the baton, coming all the way full circle, back to Kaypacha. Are you there, Kaypacha? I think Kaypacha might have been shut down by the rain, perhaps? Oh, here we go. All right, handing it off.
Oh, that was a close call. My internet is just a little funky out here in the jungle, so I hope that I'm not cut off. Tim, I'm still seeing your picture instead of myself. No, I thought I had speaker view on. Can everybody hear me?
Try holding the mic closer again.
Oh, yeah. Okay, how about this, you guys? Here I am.
Good.
Making love to the microphone. The life of a Leo. Oh my God. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm so looking forward to this course. I will actually be, like Christina said at the beginning of the webinar, I will be sharing about the moon's nodes. I'll be sharing the churning of the milk ocean. It's an ancient Hindu myth that has to do with the dragon's head and the dragon's tail, the north node and the south node, and how this really came about, the understanding and the interpretation of it from so far long ago. It's very deep, very ancient wisdom. And one thing that I see just with what is happening now, the dragon's head, the future that wants to evolve and go forward into the unknown, is in the sign of Cancer. And the tail, which has everything that's already been done and processed and passed through all the intestines, and you get stuck in the tail, having to do with the past. It's Ketu in the Hindu mythology. This is, this past, and like Ari said, Saturn is conjunct the South Node in his own sign of Capricorn. And it's very interesting to me that this Saturn conjunct the South Node of the Moon in Capricorn. This Capricorn has so much to do with our job, our business, our public profile, what we look like on Facebook and Instagram and the outside world, our reputation, what we're doing in the world to gain authority, to gain, it's our responsibilities and our duties, and it's very externally oriented towards meeting the needs and demands placed upon us. And we can get now with Pluto and Saturn and the South Node in Capricorn, we can get overly taken. We can get overly obsessed. We can become overly emotionally attached to this reputation, to this public profile, to what we look like on the outside, to the outside world. This north node of the moon is calling us into Cancer. It's calling us into ourselves, into our emotions, our memories from our childhood or previous lives. There's a deep opportunity, like Tim referenced, for emotional intelligence. And these emotions hold within, right now, our evolutionary path of growth. So it's personal reflection. And that is what this module 4 is all about, is, really meditating on our own personal birth chart, more so than even reading anyone else's. It's almost a self-study course. And one of the things that I'm really super excited about this module, it's very different than the other 3 modules of this course. Even though they were all offered at the same price, we got together for this last course and we decided to extend it from 7 weeks to 10 weeks. And we decided to offer the bonus of each one of us doing a full chart analysis using our own way, our own personality, our own counseling skills. I mean, I'm excited just to hear everybody else's chart readings. I mean, this is just like an amazing bonus to this course that is, and it's really taking all of the abstract concepts and applying them, and you'll be able to see, how does Kaypacha read a chart? And how does Maurice read a chart? And, and how does Ari and Tim and Christina, how does, everybody does, we'll still, it would be really, maybe in the future, we'll all read the same chart. That would really be something too. But just really being able to see how we take all of these abstract concepts and apply them to an individual birth chart analysis, I think is golden. It's a golden opportunity. I want to share my screen with you now and just, tell you a little bit more about what else comes with this whole, module, because, there's just so much involved. The culmination, evolutionary chart interpretation, it's going from September 7th to November 16th. But you have to understand that we give you basically, let me go down here a little bit. I hope I can go down a little bit. Every week we're going to give you 2 instructional videos, right? So there's a lesson every week from each one of us. There's 7 of us. So it's going to be 7 weeks long, okay, that we have these instructions. And the other 3 weeks are for integration and for you to receive and, listen to these chart analysis from each and every single one of us. But the idea here that is so cool about this course is that you can really take as long as you want. These 2 instructional videos are going to be available to you for the rest of your life. There's like no pressure to keep up with the class, with the course. The next week you'll get 2 more instructional videos and then 2 more and 2 more, but you can still go at your own pace. And another thing that I am so super proud of is our workbook, which is, I think, unique to this course. It really has charts of famous people. We've got exercises for you to contemplate, to help you integrate all of the lessons that are brought forth, in each instructional video. We've got an online forum. You can go online, 24/7. If you can't sleep because you have a particular question about your Pluto, you just can go right to that online forum in the middle of the night, and there'll probably be someone from Seoul in Norway to Julia in Australia. Somebody will be awake to get your question. At the end of every week, we have a live Q&A just like this, where you'll be able to ask questions about any material that was presented. Can you believe this? This is just like the most amazing freaking thing ever. 7 chart interpretations. And then we've got a Facebook group. We've got over 200. I think right now there's 230. There's probably going to be like 250 people on our group Facebook page. And they're just rattling off, talking, learning, growing, getting to know each other, comparing charts. This is just like, wow. It's astrology gone wild. Now what we're doing is today, just because you took the time to listen to this webinar, right? We're going to give you some bonuses here if you sign up for the course in the next 24 hours, right? And this is kind of a primer. I've got a webinar already. My Astrology 201 will prepare you for Module 4, so you can get a little head start. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Lilith. I'm going to offer you my Kundalini Yoga Kriyo for free, balancing the values, right? Beautiful. Julia's is going to offer you the part of fortune. And of course, exactly opposite the part of fortune is the part of spirit, like super fantastic offering. So, yeah, basically you add all those up and you can save, you can get enough astrology, $240 worth of, very good, powerful astrology medicine. And now if you want to sign up, if you didn't sign up for the whole course, but you want to get Module 1, 2, and 3 to prepare for Module 4 or to fill you in on Module 4, okay, we're going to give you, Tim is going to offer you the Moon Workshop, the lunar phases, the moon through the signs, Soul's evolutionary levels, her Asteroid Goddess Workshop. This is going to be enough astrology for you to wake up, sleep, dream, and eat astrology. And Ari is going to be offering these holy nutrients, right? And his own beginner's guide to evolutionary astrology. You're going to get a free month membership with the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. And let's not forget, if you do happen to belong to the New Paradigm Astrology community, you're going to be able to qualify for an additional $50 off the course. And you'll get $100 off if you want to, jump in and get the full course right now. So that would make Module 4 for community members $299, and the full course $1149, right? So what we're doing is we're keeping this window open. The link is going to be over there in the chat box. You can copy paste it. Maybe you can just copy it for now and save onto it. And basically, this is just your Astro Gifts. This just kind of is a table showing you all the goodies that you can receive. And adding up to $240, you will save $455. Look at all the astrology you're gonna get. Wow, this is amazing. Yeah. So we just want to thank you for coming today. Maybe we can I'll stop sharing my screen and we can get everybody on here. Let me put this in gallery view so that everybody shows up. You guys can turn your videos on and maybe even your microphones. So we don't have Sol or Julia, but Yeah, we've got two of Maurice. I mean, two of Ari. All right. I'm going to just remove this other Ari. Bye-bye. Okay. So you can see that the link is over there to sign up for the full course is in the chat box, and to sign up for Module 4 is also there, coming up shortly. And we hope that today has given you something to reflect on, to understand through the current times, and understanding yourself, your evolutionary path, and that you join us for more. Starting in, what is it, like 2 weeks, you guys? I think
Kind of.
Week from next Saturday or something.
a week from Saturday. We're
Yeah,
going to
we
be
got it.
like on it full blown, baby. All right. Well, maybe we can all join together with a great namaste.
Aloha.
Aloha.
So
Much.
Much
love.
love. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.